Hello there, welcome back to another officially Devin Abridged campaign. This time we're playing Medieval 2 Total War with the stainless steel mod by popular demand. As for the faction, I have chosen the Crusader States because I think this will throw us in at the deep end and get things going nice and quickly. So we're going to be starting off with just 3 discontinuous bits of territory surrounded by the much larger and more powerful Muslim powers who presumably don't want us Crusaders to be hanging around here. So hopefully this will get some action going nice and fast. So you can see there are bits of rebel territory in between our starting settlements. So one priority will be to sort that out and try and actually make a continuous bit of territory so we can trade between our settlements and just generally have access to all of our resources. Handily, we don't start at war with the Seljuks or the Fatimids. I think this is in a historical period where we've just won a war or something and established the Crusader States. So we're at peace for a bit. That's going to be very handy. I was trying there to find the thing that tells you how much the Pope likes you, but presumably the Pope really likes us since we are the Crusader State, so we won't worry too much about being excommunicated or anything like that. Do need to worry about the family tree. We've only got 2 guys in it, and of course in Medieval 2, as I have learned the hard way before, if your family members die you just automatically game over, so we need to keep those 2 guys alive. We start off with a problematic monetary situation. We are losing money fast, so that means we need to either capture some territory right away or lose some troops right away. And we can do both of those things by just going on some offensives with whatever we start off with. We're actually going to be on the offensive with what we start off with for a while because our settlements really suck. They, for the most part, don't have buildings in them, so we're not making much money, public order is going to be an issue, and we can't really recruit anything either. We can recruit lots of these guys, the Marinés, they're just pure trash. They're slightly better than like peasant mob, but that's not very useful to us. However, we do start with a few decent Crusader Knight type units that we'll have to use to try and beat the initial enemies we're facing. All of these rebel settlements are relatively highly garrisoned, so we're not going to be just walking over and taking them. We'll have to commit everything that we have right now to these campaigns. First, the troops from Antioch are going to go south to Tortosa, going to ignore Aleppo for now because we don't have enough men to go for it. And our main army, which was at Jerusalem, goes for Acre, and then after that we'll be targeting Damascus to the northeast. We can't attack right now because we need siege equipment, so we'll have to save some money this turn, which I did, and by the next turn we're pretty much down to nothing. We get this mission from our Council of Nobles to take Kerak, which is another rebel settlement near Jerusalem, so we can do that easily enough, as long as it's not heavily garrisoned, and as long as we don't lose all our men trying to take our initial couple of sieges. Now, because the enemy didn't sally against me, I thought, well, maybe I'll siege them down and make this easy so we don't lose any men, and then can easily go on to attack those other places. But then I instantly remembered, oh yeah, that's why I besieged them right away. We don't have any money, so we actually can't wait any more turns. We do need to attack right now. I'm going to start off with the easier of the 2 battles we're facing, the one at Tortosa. We have a small advantage and we can even use a night attack. I don't really know what night attack does in Medieval 2, presumably it debuffs the enemy in some way. One thing it also does though is debuff you as the player, because look at how dark it makes things. You can't really see anything when it's a night attack, so it's a little bit hard to control. Anyway, all I do to start off is use my archer unit to try and kill some of the enemies in the settlement before we really get in there. And I've got some of my trash gradually pushing the ram towards the gates. There are a couple of towers that will shoot them, but their loss will be irrelevant. One thing I noticed while we were sitting around waiting for access to the town is that they do have some kind of ghost soldier on their side who looks much more heavily equipped than the other guys. Perhaps Allah is with them, or maybe more embarrassingly God is with them, I don't really know, but we'll have to watch out for that guy and hope he doesn't take us down. Once the gate is opened, I send in the Armenian heavy infantry to go and take on the enemy's spearmen there. I thought this would go really well because the Armenians look like dismounted cataphracts or something. Of course I haven't actually checked the stats because I'm playing it off D style, but when I did later check the stats, it turns out they have really high defense and low attack or something like that, so they're not that good as an assault unit. Still, the enemy spears appear to be running away. They're not routing, they're just moving back to the town centre, I think. So things are going alright. The enemy's cav are getting stuck in amongst us, including the ghost guy, but my Crusader sergeants, who look a bit like a sword unit from their picture, are actually a spear unit, so they'll go in and deal with the cav just fine. We rout the couple of units that were standing there and move on towards the centre of the town. One of the things about Medieval 2 sieges is that the enemy units constantly come back from routing because they get unrouted by being in the town centre. That means these fights often just come down to grinds right at the end, where you have to kill the enemy to the last man because they can't rout or surrender. Here was a good thing where we managed to stop the enemy's archers moving back to the centre with some cav. So now the cav will hack through them, and then when the archers rout they'll have to go through the cav to try and retreat and will just be annihilated, so that's nice. Before I attacked the centre, I wanted to see if I could hit them with some arrows. Our guys used some fancy trick shots to get arrows up over the buildings, very nice, but it's really not going to do very much because the arrows are falling over such a wide area, so I had to abandon that and just order everything to pile in on the centre and try to grind the enemy to death. I did though do a bit of tactical manoeuvring and get my archers into a nice position where they could shoot into the flank of the main block of the enemy's remaining troops, and that's going to kill a whole load of them. Very nice. So yes, now we just have to speed up time and gradually kill those spear militia using our own trash until everything is dead. On the way I did have to make a concession, had to get rid of the nice camera mode where it lets you see more of the screen to get more UI back up so that I could press that button that highlights where your men and the enemy's men are, because if they weren't flashing, just looking at the image here, it's literally impossible to tell what's going on. It's just loads of shadowy figures standing around. So by using that flashy thing, which I'll be using for the entire campaign basically and spamming it as much as possible, I'll be able to hopefully keep some command over what's actually happening in these fights. It usually works. Anyway, we end up winning, lost 100 men due to the fact we had to grind loads of enemy units down, but overall that was fine. I noticed the general in that army, by the way, is carrying the lance that killed Jesus. It's particularly holy apparently, although it does mention that if you lose it you instantly die or something, so it's a cursed spear. Hopefully that won't contribute to his death at some point. One mistake and it's over for him. The settlement is absolute trash. It does make us a bit of money, but not enough to resolve our financial woes. So that means in this very same turn we'll have to jump over to Acre and use our main force to attack there. I was concerned because we don't really have enough siege equipment to make this attack properly with all of our troops. A lot of them will just be left standing around. So the enemy will have a decent defender's advantage. But because I'm taking this battle really seriously now, I actually went on to check some of the stats on the enemy units. This is almost unprecedented, and basically it's just a whole load of trash. We've got a lot of trash ourselves, but the few good units that we have will help us out quite a lot. And the trash is useful too actually, because we can use them to push rams and things like that. Now you might notice I'm attacking right away as the battle starts. If you really wanted to play the game, what you could do is look at the enemy's walls and see which points are undefended and then just attack where they aren't defending, because that saves you a lot of trouble. You can just get up onto the wall for free sometimes or walk past units defending the wall. Now I haven't done that, and that means my best units, my dismounted knights, are actually walking right towards the enemy's archers, the one place where they shouldn't be walking towards across the entire map. So that was good of me. I am just going to try and run through it, going to go around the corner to get out of the line of sight, but we will lose loads of our best men doing that, and obviously I'm not putting very much care into it. Still, once they get there, we're going to have a pretty big advantage. We climb up the wall, and interestingly the enemy did actually come over here to stop me climbing over the wall using their archers in melee. Not that that's really going to help them very much, because this, I guess, is what I was looking for. Now our super heavy knights will just annihilate all of these archers in melee. Our guys have really high melee stats. The only stat these guys don't have is the shield stat, the one that stops you dying to arrows, so that's what got them on the way in. Meanwhile, we still need to wait before we can make the other two attacks I'm setting up for at the southern and eastern gates. The AI did do a pretty cheeky move here. They brought over some horse archers to this fight with the knights and started shooting arrows at them. While they do have a shield on their back, presumably it doesn't add any shield stat or anything like that. So they are actually going to kill some of our guys and we can't do anything about it. Pretty bad stuff. So far we've used our best unit very terribly, or I've used it. Don't know why I'm giving you responsibility for my gameplay inadequacies. Anyway, in this particular case it doesn't matter, but we'll try and learn some lessons. Eventually we get those gates open and we start attacking, but the enemy have grouped up their various units on the insides of the gates, so that means the fight will descend into a good old-fashioned grind. One thing I did manage to do is get my king inside before the enemy pulled up at the south gate. and with his unit I can go and take out those horse archers, thus preventing my knights gradually being totally killed, and they can just have a fun time now, slowly killing the enemy's archers instead. There's not much we can do to affect the outcome of these grinds because there's no room to maneuver, but we can rely on the fact that our Crusader sergeants are a good unit, so they should be able to kill the enemy's spear militia somewhat favourably. It's annoying though because I have all these knights that I can't use very efficiently right now. We're going to try and do some manoeuvres, especially once things start to open up, like here at the eastern gate. The grind is gradually coming to an end as we make our way through these enemy units and can start moving a couple of our cav units around. At the same time, the king and the mailed Crusader knights have gone around the west side of the city, and after taking out the enemy horse archers we found some foot archers just standing in the street, so we'll kill them as well. And with them out the way we will have a clear route to the centre of the town, which will be incredibly useful for us because then we can rear attack wherever we like. The enemy general dies somewhere in the mess, and that's going to start some routing which will help us out quite a lot. There goes the archers I just mentioned. So now these two cav units can pile into the backs of the enemy's defensive positions. There are some more exposed archers there, very nice. And at the south gate, things just resolved because the enemy started routing after the general went. Now we have to desperately chase them because anyone we don't kill right now will just instantly unroute when they get to the centre, and we'll have to kill them to the last man again. So to save ourselves a lot of effort, we really have to chase them down hard. Our knights are making slow work of these enemy archers. We have a huge advantage of course, but the fact that only a couple of guys can fight at once means that not much progress is being made, so nothing's happening over there really. However, as everything routed back to the centre, since I had cav in the centre already, I was able to cut off all of the enemy's retreating paths, and we absolutely wiped out everything that remained in the enemy army and claimed victory in the battle for all intents and purposes, except for the fact that this unit out here is unrouted, so we have to wait for our knights to kill them. And as you can see, we can get 3, maybe 4 guys involved in the melee at any one time, and while they do gradually kill the enemies, they seem to be doing it in pretty much slow motion. The enemy just aren't reacting to us standing here. We do occasionally take a casualty as well, which is a shame. I think if we had a more broad battlefront, these guys would have died a long time ago. Eventually though, after a long struggle, that unit routs and that instantly wins the battle for us. There we have it, a clear victory. We did lose 400 men, and I'm pretty sure we could have lost fewer, at least fewer of our elite units if we'd done this in a more efficient fashion, but maybe we'll try that next time. I feel like I do want to try some actual gameplay in this Let's Play, not just spam units and try and win. We're going to try and win using a little bit of craft and cunning if we can, especially given our precarious situation and lack of ability to recruit. However, we have now evened out the finances with the capture of Acre. The town itself again is pure trash with basically nothing there, so it's not very useful to us in terms of development, but the money is going to be handy. Religion is going to be a problem in all of our territories really. Basically we're Christians, most of the people around here are not, so we have massive public order debuffs just everywhere, and we're just going to have to deal with that somehow as we go along. That very problem means that we do have to leave some stuff in Acre as I form up to leave and go for the mission objective to the south. However, I can actually take most of the stuff with me because the king of our faction has really good stats, so by leaving him and just a few troops, that is enough to hold down Acre. That means most of the heavy troops will be able to participate in the campaign, so that's all good. At Tortosa, we're trying to do the same thing, leaving behind the minimum amount of troops possible to prevent rebellion, because I want to rush Aleppo as soon as possible and get that captured. So I need to try and do it with the 2 small groups of troops I can have coming from both west and east. So we're just forming up there, ready to reinforce once I start the siege next turn. Some diplomacy news now. I've sent my diplomat on a boat to go off to find the Byzantine Empire. Since they are one of the major powers, I wanted to make them my ally so that declaring war on me would seem like a worse idea to the AI. And of course they should be supporting my cause, being Christian themselves. However, they don't like my initial deal because I was trying to get military access. Then there's this thing that I don't remember how it works specifically in Medieval 2, but in the past people have told me that whenever you make a proposition, if they don't accept it, they then always refuse the next proposition, no matter how good for them it is. There's some sort of rule going on in the background of the diplomacy AI, and you have to give them money or something to reset it or wait until the next term. So yes, we didn't get the deal in the end, But we shall keep trying, because we can just leave the diplomat there and do it again at the start of the next turn. They were trying to get me to give them money for it, but no, we're going to throw that away, and ultimately it was fine. We got the alliance, we got trade rights, and we gave them our map information so they know where we are. Please come and help me, Byzantines, should the need arise. This means the Sultanate and the Caliphate might hesitate to suddenly declare war on us, because the AI will see that the Byzantines could get drawn in as well, and they might not want that. We'll see how that goes, of course. Now back to Aleppo. I move everything I can out of Edessa and start the siege, and then the reinforcements from the west can link up, and altogether we have a reasonable army there that should do okay against the force inside. I also noticed that there's only 3 turns on that siege, and I thought maybe we can just wait them out. After all, any troops we lose right now in this campaign can't be replaced. So there is some incentive to let sieges go out as long as possible to weaken the enemy before you fight them, to minimize your own casualties. However, that's not only a bad idea in general, because it means you're wasting turns not conquering territory while the siege is going, but right now we're actually not quite good enough when it comes to money. We're still able to go bankrupt. We theoretically have a positive income, but I guess if we have to spend any money at all, or the harvests aren't very good or something, we go into the red, and I want to avoid that. So I am going to attack Kerak here without bothering to siege them out for a while. Just go in with a couple of rams. The force inside is nothing special, just some more trash, so nothing too much to worry about. I'm being more careful with my knights this time, using a siege tower. Didn't actually need to, because the enemy archers are somewhere else. In fact, I'm charging the archers with ladders, so yes, still doing this the wrong way around. Luckily, it doesn't matter in this case, because the archers have fire arrows on, and that means there's a long delay between each volley, and also they're not very effective, and they're super inaccurate as well. So broadly speaking, the ladders just easily run up in front of the archers, set the ladders up, and then the guys can go up and take the archers on in melee. They kindly did stand there and wait for the melee. Now the Crusader sergeants won't be as good against them as the knights, but still, we should win that fight, suffice to say, so we'll just leave them to it. Most of the enemy troops are just dithering about down off the walls, but some of their archers are helping from back there. I say helping. They're launching fire arrows at the melee in general, but so inaccurately, they're probably killing as many of their own men as they are of ours, so that's all fine, and they do stop firing after a couple of volleys and go to hide back at the capture point. We win that melee, and we also, at about this time, open the gate. The enemy had some camels defending the gate, and they came right out to attack my Syrian light infantry, the Syrian auxiliaries. I thought that could be a potentially difficult fight. I have no idea how good these guys are against cavalry, or camels as it is. Instead, we're just going to rely on our own cav to take them down. I'm guessing though there's some kind of bonus that camels get against cav. There usually is in games to represent horses being afraid of camels. Whatever the case was, it worked out alright, because next time I looked, the camels were dead/routing, so we break our way in with the heavy cav. Unfortunately though, because most of the enemy's army is now sitting on the capture point and there's not really anything we can do about that, it's going to be a nice fight to the death grind to end this one. I'm going to do my best to get the good troops up front and take good fights, like here, spears against the enemy's camels, and over here some more spears going around via an alternate route to attack these archers in melee. That should be good. Some good fights, but it's going to be nothing like the win we'd get if this were a field battle and could rout the enemy. The fight to the death will cause us to take moderate casualties as we grind our way through these guys. It also causes nothing to happen in terms of gameplay. I'm just sitting here and waiting for us to win because there's no space to get around them. Probably could have actually gone around behind with some cav at the end, but by that point it didn't matter. We were just fighting archers. So we'll wait. After a while, our men get the business done, and that's going to be the end of that. But we did lose a couple of hundred men altogether, a lot of them being just in that final fight. A little bit messy, but still, it's got the job done. Our losses were slightly reduced by the old casualties healed thing, a mystery factor that gives you some of your men back. Someone told me, I think, that it's always the first something % of troops that die in a battle that come back. So if you can lose a load of men right up front, you will get them back at the end. Someone who knows how it actually works, do remind me / let me know in the comments. Now, with this capture, we not only complete a mission which takes us out of the red financially, but we're now making a profit with the loss of troops and the gain of new population to tax. So now we can start to make some cash. and invest that in particular here at Kerak because it's a castle. That means we can make proper military recruitment buildings here and potentially unlock the ability to field troops, which I'm sure will come in very useful at some point during the campaign. I'll be trying to save up some money and sort that out as much as possible in the near future. Going to ignore this terrible adoption opportunity. And here the Pope offers to send us some money if we can get specifically 39% of the population of Kerak to be Catholic. Not sure why that number's the important amount, but fine. I do have a priest up there near Antioch, so I'll bring him down to start doing that. We could certainly use the money, and it would be nice if the Pope likes us and hopefully sends us more money if he really wants this crusade to succeed. Anyway, we've got another bit of diplomacy news to look at now, because the diplomat from the Byzantine Empire, or to the Byzantine Empire, has now moved on to speak to the Seljuk Sultanate, because I wanted to see if they would be my ally as well, and they did seem to be willing. Now this might seem very uncrusadery, but there is a reason behind it. We give them a nice generous offer to make sure they accept, and they are very pleased with it. So now we're allied to one of our principal enemies, lore-wise, I guess. But the reason behind it is that the Fatimid Caliphate is going to be my main opponent for this campaign. The objective in the campaign is basically to capture Egypt. It's something like have 25 regions, including Jerusalem and Cairo. So we might as well go and reform the Egyptian kingdom as the Crusader States. That's going to be the main focus we have after this part, or once we're done sorting everything out in this area at least. Here I accidentally sent a guy into the zone of control of a Fatimid army, so I had to go reinforce him just in case they declared war and suddenly attacked him. Luckily they didn't. So yes, this will be the end of this first part of the Abridged campaign. Next time we're going to look at Damascus and Aleppo and just generally sorting everything out in these here Crusader states. And then we'll try and get some military buildings going and start a new crusade, if you like, to go and destroy the Fatimids and get some serious territory going. We'll see how that goes, and the entire campaign, of course, through the rest of this series, so please do join me if you're interested. I will see you in part 2.